So what Animator is a state machine. Notice how it says any state here. And it's just a way of creating transitions between animations that we make in another program like Maya or Max or whatever. And you want to kind of think about states as you're creating animations as ways for your characters to react to specific events. So for example, like when you stop moving, an idle state might play, which is an event, or a walk state might play when you hit a key. And the amount of pressure you push might take the walk into a run. So that's kind of what you want to think about when you move forward here. So what I want to do here is I'm going to make transitions between the walk and the idle. So if I right click on my idle and I click make transition, what I'm saying here is when I'm in an idle state, which is him standing and putting his hand on the head, I want to move to a walk state. So if I actually click on this arrow, you'll see it'll bring it up here. So you can see if I can scroll through this, and he's kind of idling at the bottom. Here, let me kind of bring this up so you can see that better. He's idling, and then in between the idle, here's the actual transition. He'll go into a walk. So from this idle, he'll go into a walk. Now, there's going to be times when you release the arrow keys, and you're going to want him to go from a walk to an idle. So you right-click on walk, and you go to make transition, and go up to idle. So now it goes back and forth. So let's test it out in our actual view, and all we have to do that is select our idle in our animator and press play. And again, remember, we can control the speed here if we feel like it's going too slow between our idle state. And once this is finished playing, because we set up these transitions, it'll immediately go into the walk. So what we need to do now is sort of set in some parameters for what happens when we push our left and right arrow key, or our A and D. So let me kind of show you an example here. I'm going to drag in my first person controller, and let's set him to 0. So let's make sure that we have our properties window. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry, I want my transform. So I'm just going to reset this position to 0. I'm going to hit F to focus for a second on this. And I'm going to create a cube down below this. Now, currently he's set to 0, 0, 0. So if I press play, he falls into position. Now, if I press my left arrow key, let me make sure I'm in here for a second. You'll notice, so now I'm pushing my A and D key. If I move him left and right and front and back, so let's take a look at this number right here, the X. If I move him all the way to the left, he goes into a negative number. If I move him all the way to the right, he goes into positive numbers. Same thing with my front and my back. You can see he goes into negative and positive numbers. It goes up and down. So let me go ahead and delete this and my cube. Let's go back to our Leo character. Now there's a reason I want to show you that. And that's because whenever you create these parameters, you want to remember that the furthest number you go into is a -1, and the highest you can go into for animation is a +1. So let's select our idle state here, and let's create a parameter. And I'm going to make a float value. I don't know if you noticed when I was moving my standard controller around, it had a 0.1. And I'm going to name this vertical input, so V input. And I'm going to select my my idle state here. I'm going to select first the state from my walk to my idle. So I'm going from a walk to an idle here. And what you'll notice is under conditions, let me expand this a little bit more. That V input we created is now loaded in here. And we can say things like if our input is greater than a 0.1 or a -0.1, we want him to walk or run. So I'm going to go ahead and put 0.1 in here. Now it's important to know that, again, from the -1 to a whole 1, that what we want to do is when we're going from walk to idle, or our walk state, when we hit the vertical button or the vertical key, as long as it's greater than 0.1, we'll go from an idle to a walk. If it goes less than, so if we go here to vertical input and say we set this to less than 0.1, and we could even go negative 0.1, it'll go from, again, idle to walk. So as long as it's less, it'll slow down.
To V input, want less.
I'm sorry, I sort of inverted that. I'm sorry, one more time. So as we're going to, we're going to our idle, we want to go to less than 0.1. And as we're going from our idle, as we push the pressure down, we want it to go greater than 0.1. So again, if we put our key down, the pressure will go up to 1, which is our maximum, and we want to make sure that's greater than 0.1. And as we release, that number is going to go down, and we want it to be less than 0.1. So you can see we walk. Here's our walk animation, and it'll go into an idle, and then we go from here, from our idle into our walk. Alright, so let's kind of see this in action. Right now you can see our V input is set to 0, which means it's less than 0.1. So as we play this, you'll notice that unless this V input goes up, it's not going to go into the walk state. This is important when we do the programming later. So if I set this to 0.5 and I hit enter, you'll notice 0.5 is greater than 0.1 and he goes into the walk state. So in the next video we're going to take a look at further creating more transitions.